Hello and welcome to People and Profit, where we look at how business shapes our world. This week, who's afraid of the French elections? We look at the leading candidates' plans for the economy and how much it'll cost to put them in place. They're the main source of job creation, but entrepreneurs are losing hope that politicians can make their lives easier. And jitters on the markets, we find out why investors are worried about this election and what they consider to be the best outcome for the economy. Now, the days are counting down to the first round of the French elections. As usual, the candidates have been promising the world, from a tax on robots to tens of billions of new investment. Now, they're all facing the same challenges if they win, though: weak growth, stubbornly high unemployment, and pressure from the European Union to rein in public spending. So what are the big ideas to reinvigorate the French economy? Kate Moody's been combing the candidates' manifestos to find out. Kate.
Well, Stephen, let's start with François Fillon. The Conservative candidate wants to scrap France's 35-hour working week and extend the retirement age from 62 to 65. He's also proposed cutting corporate and payroll taxes, abolishing a wealth tax, and reducing 100 billion euros in public spending, in part by cutting some 500,000 public sector workers. Socialist Benoît Hamon has made headlines with his plan for a version of a universal basic income, initially up to 600 euros a month. He's called for Europe to invest €1 trillion in urban development and green technology, and wants to tax wealth generated by robots rather than human workers. The far-right Marine Le Pen envisions a future outside of the Eurozone, a so-called Frexit, and a return to a national currency. Much of her platform focuses on immigration, including higher taxes for firms that hire foreign rather than domestic workers, and a tax on imports and less government spending on EU and immigration matters. The centrist Emmanuel Macron also wants to cut back on spending by 60 billion euros by eliminating 120,000 public sector jobs. But he's also suggested a 50 billion euro program to boost training schemes for unemployed youth. And he hopes to boost business by increasing flexibility and reducing both the corporate tax rate and housing taxes. On the far left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon wants the wealthy to pay more tax, up to 90% for top earners. He's laid out plans for shorter working weeks and a lower retirement age, 60 rather than the current 62. And he's vowed to pull out of international trade treaties to focus on French manufacturing. So what might all those proposals cost the French state? The economic think tank Institut Montaigne says that Fillon's plans would save the most money, over 11 billion euros, while Mélenchon has by far the most expensive platform, with almost 120 billion in additional spending. All of those figures and much more will be weighed by French voters as the race to the Élysée Palace continues. Stephen?
Kate, thank you very much for that. Now, small businesses are the engine of any economy. Here in France, there are more than 3 million companies that fall into this category, and they're responsible for almost half of all employment in the country. Entrepreneurs have for years complained about high taxes and excessive red tape. So how are they feeling about these elections? Ellen Gainsford has been finding out.
The Ciseaux brothers start their day at 7 a.m. They run a factory making wooden pieces for barrels with their 5 employees. Their order book is full, but the brothers don't want to expand the business any further.
It's over as far as I'm concerned. I've got lots of ideas, but I'm deliberately not developing them because it's too much of a headache. All the administration, all the paperwork. And then there are the charges that just keep on coming.
More orders would mean they could hire 2 extra employees. But the brothers want to wait and see who the next president is before taking anyone else on. The town Nonceau-Beuvron in central France has been specifically designated for creating rural jobs, with tax advantages for local businesses. That's what encouraged Pierre Blanchard to move here to develop his medical app, Docodome, created to facilitate house calls for doctors. But he's finding all the regulations so complicated, he sought the advice of an accountant.
Even with the difficulties, we're happy to be entrepreneurs in France, but there are too many obstacles in our way.
At this lunch for small business owners, Pierre Blanchard meets the Ciseaux brothers. While entrepreneurs generally vote for conservative candidates, this group all want to see a different kind of politics in France.
I'll vote Front National just for the pleasure of seeing where it'll take us and to annoy people.
An electoral shock could be a good thing. For once, the two main parties will get a slap in the face if they aren't in the second round. Something has to change. If that means trusting someone who hasn't proved themselves politically, then so be it.
With lunch finished, it's back to work for these entrepreneurs. They'll have to wait and see what the election serves up.
Now, this is an election that's being watched closely, not only here in France, but also around Europe and in many other parts of the world. Let's turn now to Gilles Moec, Chief European Economist at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. He joins us now from London. Gilles, thanks for being with us. It seems there's a lot of anxiety out there about this election. What are investors in the market so worried about in France?
I think they're worried about two different things. One is what could happen to France itself. It's the second biggest economy of the euro area, and we have an unusually wide array of potential economic policies there, from pro-market, pro-European version to a fairly old-style socialist version. So there is this unusual array of possibilities for France itself, and maybe more importantly, actually, you've got also the fate of the monetary union as an institutional construct, because we know that gradually the ECB is going to reduce its stimulus, and we know that we need to make the union more complete once those crutches, those monetary policy crutches will disappear. And for this, we need a proper deal between Germany and France. We need a second wave of institutional progress on the Eurozone. And for this, basically, you need a pro-European president in Paris. So it doesn't just matter for France itself, it matters for the future of Europe together.
How concerned are you then about this idea that Marine Le Pen has of leaving the euro? Is the future of the euro really at risk, do you think?
No, it's definitely a major issue. I mean, it's the first time that we have one of the founding members of the European Union, and obviously of the monetary union, that potentially could decide to leave. It's not extraordinarily clear how and when it would be done if Marine Le Pen were to win the presidency, but this possibility now is on the table, needs to be discussed. And our point of view on this is that, honestly, if France leaves the monetary union, there is no real point in continuing, because the same forces would probably be at play in other countries, and anyway, the union would be so wounded and probably so incomplete that continuing without France would probably make no sense. So losing France in this construct would probably be completely existential.
To what extent are the markets pricing in any particular victory here? If we look at Marine Le Pen, will that be a big shock? Will we see chaos if that's the case when these elections are over?
What's interesting actually is that there are several different sources of concern. Obviously, the possibility that Marine Le Pen could win has triggered an increase in the risk premium on French assets. You can see that on the difference between 10-year yields in France and Germany. But recently, it's more the possibility that Jean-Luc Mélenchon would make it to the second round that is also generating some concern. So it's not just about Marine Le Pen. In general, I would say that if we end up with a Eurosceptic president in France in May, yes, the market reaction would probably be quite dramatic. But I would keep something in mind. Whoever wins in May will still need to confirm the victory in the parliamentary elections, and investors are increasingly knowledgeable about this. So that you would probably have a first sort of knee-jerk reaction just after the presidential elections, but then there would be a sort of wait-and-see attitude until people see whether or not the president gets a real possibility to implement his or her policies after the June elections. So it would probably be a sort of two waves reaction.
Is there a best-case scenario here for investors?
If you look at market reaction so far, I think it's quite asymmetric. What we've seen is that every time the possibility that a Eurosceptic president could win was rising, the market was reacting pretty badly. Again, just look at the difference in yields between France and Germany. Every time a pro-European president seems to be more likely than you see asset prices reacting more favorably. It's not so much about the name itself. I really think the dividing line in terms of market positioning is on whether or not whoever is in charge in Paris after May would be positive for the continuation of the monetary union or negative. This is absolutely crucial for the market positioning.
No matter who gets elected, they're all going to be facing the same economic situation in France at present. Can you help us to sort of diagnose what the French economy needs now to grow and to be kind of more productive within Europe?
Well, France actually is not doing so badly. I know that we're in Paris, there's a tendency to be extraordinarily negative about the French performance. It's actually not so bad in the European context. But potential growth remains fairly weak by historical standards. It's only slightly above 1%. It used to be close to 2%. What we need definitely is an increase in the labour market participation rate. We need more people simply at work. The demographic situation in France is actually quite good. It's turning those fairly vast demographic resources into actual jobs. That is the issue. And when you look at some of the specificities of the French labour market, the fact that we still have a very dual labour market with a big difference between open-ending contracts and temporary contracts, the fact that it's very hard to move from one segment to the other, the fact that there are lots of difficulties to move from one economic sector to the other, all this is probably an impediment to potential growth. So that the labour market is probably the key to seeing a proper acceleration in French growth in the near future.
OK, Gilles Moec, Chief European Economist at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, thank you very much for joining us from London. And that's where we leave it for this week. Do get in touch with your thoughts on the French election. You can do so on Facebook at France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at NewsStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.